If you've heard people say ChatGPT is AI, ChatGPT is not AI, we're not at AGI or whatever, and all these terms are being thrown around and it's very confusing, this is definitely the place to be because I'm going to go through all of them from top to bottom. We'll define all of these terms, we'll go through how this is actually a hierarchy from artificial intelligence through to machine learning, deep learning, and then to LLMs, which is actually what ChatGPT is. So my name is Omar. I'm a cybersecurity engineer with a very, very high interest in artificial intelligence, and I've been teaching myself about it, and I'm going to be helping you guys out to really understand what is artificial intelligence and how can we use it to the best of its ability. So the absolutely pressing question is simply, what is artificial intelligence? And according to the EU AI Act and NIST guidance, it is simply machine based systems that, for some objective, take inputs and generate outputs, predictions, recommendations, decisions, or content that influence the world. Now, this is obviously their, let's say, the industry standard grade definition, but simply put, AI at face value is essentially a system where, let's say, you as a human could do a process that a machine is now able to do. So it's doing something which is considered smart. So let's split them into two words: artificial and intelligence. So when we're saying artificial, this is obviously something that is man made. It's artificial, it's not natural in a sense, right? And when we're saying intelligence, we're talking about something that, you have intuition, you're aware, and you have experience, and you're able to make decisions consciously aware of what your objectives may be or even the consequences. There is some form of awareness there. There needs to be awareness and it needs to be coherent. That is essentially what we're saying when we talk about intelligence. So, us as human beings, we do have intelligence. Obviously, we have a brain, therefore, we have intelligence. We all have different experiences and we're able to form our own opinions regardless of the subject if we have experience on it or not. So essentially, artificial intelligence will be that something that is not human, natural, meaning it's man made. So, like we're saying, like these machines or these, even it could be to do with robotics, and it has intelligence. Therefore, it must have awareness, consciousness, and it should be able to make decisions. That is where the clash is coming between AI and AGI, which is why we really need to be very careful about how we choose these terms, especially depending on who you're talking to and what the situation may be. And what you guys all need to understand is that there is a hierarchy. And AI is at the absolute top of this. And in that hierarchy, the next stage is machine learning, which is considered to be a subfield of AI. Now, machine learning is essentially where systems are able to improve given extra data. So they are trained upon data, and there's different types of machine learning that we'll go through now. But before that, plainly put, the more examples you give it, the more data you provide it or experience, the better the machine learning will become. So we have three types of machine learning. We have supervised, which has labeled examples, and that will end up predicting the labels. We have unsupervised, so it finds a structure by itself. It's not provided labels, so the data it's given is completely unstructured, and the machine must go ahead and create the relationships itself. And the final one is reinforcement learning. So it's by trial and error. And the way it works is that essentially we are rewarding the machine with the correct action. So that's machine learning. And then the next part within this hierarchy is deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning. So see how we are going down. We had artificial intelligence at the top. The subset field of AI then became machine learning. And now we're at the subset field of machine learning, which is what? Deep learning. So, what is deep learning? It uses neural networks, which essentially try to replicate the human brain. And it has many, many layers, and they try to find hierarchical representations. So, this is finding relationships between objects and shapes. It's looking for words and meanings with characters, tone and style. It's going through every layer of what it's provided to learn those representations and to build the relationships. Now, before we move down to actually the next stage, which would be the LLMs, which is what ChatGPT is essentially, I want to talk about transformers. So, a lot of these modern language models like ChatGPT are largely running on transformers. And this is an architecture that was actually introduced in 2017, and it uses self attention to essentially look at all the relevant parts of the inputs to make relationships and to only focus on the parts that actually matter. So we're focusing attention where it matters and we're not just reading left to right, so to speak. So with transformers, how you have to picture it, and I think the best way to look at this is that imagine a reader, for example, and it's presented with a very hefty document, like a very, very big document, many pages, lots of words. And what it's immediately able to do is essentially focus the attention on the parts that actually matter rather than reading the whole document left to right. So, this is an architecture that is mainly used in the next set and within our hierarchy tree. So, again, where we were at AI, we went down to machine learning, deep learning, and now we're at large language models, LLMs, which is the product of this is essentially things like ChatGPT. And they are the ones that largely run on transformers. So there's actually a very good definition here when it comes to these foundational models, LLMs, which is now a subset of deep learning. And what we're saying is that these are very large, deep models trained on broad data, usually with self supervision, then adapted to many tasks. And that means that there's actually a variety of these LLMs. You have your general purpose, and then you have your, let's just say, still statistical models of them. And then you also have the focused ones, which are focused on specific tasks. And that could be related to what all of us are familiar with the term agentic AI. Now, again, we did mention that LLMs are largely using the transformer architecture. And let's just take one into example. An LLM like ChatGPT has transformers that are trained to essentially predict the next token, which is essentially in layman terms, the next word. So let's just put it this way. LLMs, things like ChatGPT, are supercharged autocomplete. They are supposed to be coherent and fluent in language, not necessarily factual. And this is a very big misconception that a lot of people make. So, key properties about these LLMs essentially, they are general purpose, and the way we interact with them is usually via prompting or fine tuning for us to achieve a certain task. So, at scale, obviously, they're supposed to have better reasoning, coding, translation, and summarization capabilities. And another very critical thing to remember is that these are still statistical models, meaning they learn from patterns, they learn from data. They do not learn from symbols or symbolic reasoning, let's just put it that way. So they don't look at things the same way you and I do. They do not interpret words the same way you and I do. Essentially, that if there is a lot of coherent text that it is fed to be trained upon, it is able to predict text much better simply because it was fed something that was accurate or factual. And now the product of this at the end of the hierarchy is something like ChatGPT. And its engine, its core, is the large language model, these LLMs that run on what we discussed, the transformer architecture. So ChatGPT is the end product that is created by OpenAI with the engine that we discussed being the LLM. And it's wrapped within a chat interface, which is how we're able to interact with it. And they have adapted it with policies, so the safety guardrail, so that it's not just taking any prompt and executing it unknowingly. And sometimes you have some interesting capabilities like retrieval, browser searching, document uploading. And these are something are what we would say these are capabilities of a RAG. So what we're talking about right now, ChatGPT solely for its sole purpose is a conversational engine. It is simply just a large language model. It's a language model. It's there, it's explicit, it's in the name essentially of what it is. When you start to give it the capabilities of allowing it to retrieve things from the internet and go further and use real time data so it can browse and do function calls, you're giving it capabilities of what you would consider to be a knowledge engine. This is something I'll go into much more depth in a different video, but for now, what we should focus on is that ChatGPT solely is essentially a conversational engine with some knowledge engine capabilities. So, plainly put, LLMs are the engine, ChatGPT is the car with the steering wheel, some cool functionalities like the dashboard where you have the apps and GPS, etc. It matters for us to be able to make this distinction because when we're saying what can ChatGPT do or what it cannot do, we're essentially really evaluating the underlying model, which is the LLM, plus the product guardrails that OpenAI have provided and any other connected tools. So, like for example, when it comes to Claude, Anthropic's model, you're able to connect it with your OneDrive, with your email, with your calendar, etc. So, if we go over that hierarchy again, we had artificial intelligence at the top, we had machine learning, we had then deep learning, and then after deep learning, we had a product of deep learning, which is one of many, which is the large language models, which is the engine for products like ChatGPT. So, what we can automatically take away from this is that when it comes to a product that is using machine learning or deep learning or even both, it is always an artificial intelligence model. It falls under that umbrella. However, you do have other AI products that aren't considered to fall under machine learning or deep learning. They don't have to be involved with those two layers. So, always reference this hierarchy when it comes to actually understanding artificial intelligence and its subfields. Let me know in the comments below if there was something that you want me to go more into depth on, whether it was to do with the AI definition or even what's going on when we talk about machine learning, or more examples of deep learning and not just large language models. I hope that was clear. I know that was actually a lot of information to take in. Be sure to subscribe, as the next video I'll talk about AGI and what is AGI and where are we really when we talk about the AGI race. So hope you enjoyed the video and thank you so much for watching.